Hi, everybody. We are in the September 11th section of the book 910. So I need you to open up your book to page 127. When we left things, we had just finished up with Will in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, over on page 126. Page 127 brings us to Los Angeles, California, with Amy. As I mentioned to you, this is the section of the book where the timeline's going to matter a lot more because we have an actual historical event that we're building up to. So I'm going to remind you that Amy's over on the West Coast. It is Pacific time. So if we do our mental math and figure out exactly what time it is in Amy's world, it's actually 8:30 here in New York. So at this point, we know that we're rapidly approaching a event that is going to change things. On the other end, 3,000 miles away in New York City, a phone was ringing and ringing, but no one was answering. Come on. Pick up, Mom, pick up. Amy had set her alarm so she could reach her mom before her mom called her, before her mom left for her meeting. She wanted to tell her everything. Tell her about the first day, about how she met one nice girl and one mean one, about gym class. You wouldn't believe what the gym teacher's name is. And about math and lunch period. She would have to bring a snack from now on, she would inform her mom. She wanted to say she was sorry. She was sorry for being rude on the phone and pretending she couldn't hear her mom. She was sorry she'd had a horrible day. But she shouldn't have taken it out on her mother. She wanted to tell her mom how much she missed her and couldn't wait for her to get back. Though she might not want to share how she had thought her mom and dad were getting divorced, even if all that had been cleared up last night at the restaurant. So we're going to pause here for just a second. We are on the top of page 128, and we don't get that page break that we come to rely on from this book that tells us that we're going back in time, but this is a little bit of a flashback. We're going to see why Amy is suddenly very confident and secure that her parents are not getting divorced, no matter what Bridget and Vanessa have said to her the day before. It was a weekday, Monday, but Amy's dad had wanted to take her out to a nice dinner. Amy glanced across the menu to the prices as she was picking what she might want to eat. It was expensive. She ran her fingers over the real tablecloth and noticed the napkins were cloth too. Why did we come to such a fancy place? Amy asked her dad from across the table. What, this place? Her dad joked. Well, for my special little girl, why not? Suddenly, Amy felt sick. Was this going to be the big announcement? Were her parents getting a divorce? Was that why they were here at this expensive restaurant? That's how it always happens in the movies. The dad and his daughter, the china plates, the shiny glasses of water, maybe even a Shirley Temple with a 2 red cherry. And then he breaks the bad news. So just so you know, a Shirley Temple is a drink that you take 7-Up or Sprite and you put maraschino cherry in it and some cherry juice, and it makes it pink and bubbly. So it was a popular drink for young people back at this time. But what about Mom? Isn't Mom your special girl? Amy blanched, her insides wrenched up into a knot. Amy's father looked at her. He tipped his head and sort of crinkled his brow. What's this all about, honey? What's wrong? So we're over on the top of page 129, and we see that Amy's dad is finally picking up on some signals that maybe Amy's got some issues that need to be addressed. So let's see how this conversation turns out. Amy felt tears burning behind her eyes and that sharp, knife-like twinge in her throat that always signaled a flood of tears. But she held them back. There was so much. There was too much. At the same time, she didn't want to go back to school tomorrow without knowing. She needed to know the truth about her parents once and for all. Are you and Mom splitting up? Amy heard herself asking. Her father dropped his menu. It clattered on his plate. He looked hard at Amy. No, Amy, not at all. Why would you even ask that? So Amy told her dad about her first day of school. Vanessa, Bridget, Tom Cruise, and Ryan Phillippe. She had never heard her father laugh so hard in public. "I'm sorry, Amy." Her dad composed himself. "I don't mean to make light of it, but no, your mom and I are not getting divorced. We love each other very much, and we love you." Top of page 130. Boy, did that sound suspicious. He must have read her face. "Seriously, Amy, stop it," he told her. "You're just going to have to believe me. Your mother and I have never talked about it. Never, not even once." Amy took a big drink of water. "Then who's Chris?" she asked. "Chris?" her father said. "From your mom's office, Chris Weissman? She's your mom's new boss." "Why?" She. When her appetite returned, Amy was able to eat everything she ordered: salad, steak, French fries, and dessert. She ate like she hadn't eaten in days, when in fact, she hadn't eaten in one whole day. Food never tastes as good as when you are really hungry. So we do get the page break in the middle of page 130 to tell us that we are back here on the morning of September 11th at 8:30 on the East Coast where Mom is, and 5:30 on the West Coast where Amy is. It was pitch black at 5:30 in the morning in Los Angeles, but the sun would be up in Manhattan. Her mother would be getting ready for her big meeting at the whatever it was building. She would be all dressed in her gray suit and black high heels, which Amy had put her stamp of approval on, maybe putting on another coat of mascara. She might even be making her bed in the hotel. Amy smiled. Her mom was like that. Amy held the phone in her hand, sitting up in bed, and listened to the ringing. "Come on, Mom. Come on, pick up already. Please, please, please. I miss you so much, Mom. Just pick up." So, right now we're going to add to the character chart that Amy is feeling some regret for how she spoke to Mom. REGRET. Because remember, she basically pretended like she had bad service, she couldn't hear Mom, and she hung up on her. And that was all because Amy was allowing her emotions to control the situation before she got any factual information from her parents. The other thing we need to add is that Amy's dad has straightened things out and explained that they are not getting divorced. Okay? So it is your character chart. You can add the details that you see fit, but at least add that Amy's dad tells her they are not getting divorced. And you can also add that Chris is her mom's boss. So all of these suspicions, all of these half-truths and rumors that a very mean Vanessa threw at her, they were based in nothing, which we knew all along. But remember, when you're feeling vulnerable, you're feeling alone, things like that kind of play with your head. And that's what happened to Amy. Okay? So now we're going to jump over to page 132. And on page 132, we are very importantly located in New York. So it is 8:14 a.m. And we really want to dial in and pay attention because we are with Sergio. An unexcused absence meant detention, but for some reason, the principal decided to give Sergio a second chance. Possibly Sergio was still riding the wave of his math award, giving the school a good name. Or maybe it was because everyone deserves a second chance. The principal had called him into her office first thing that morning. "But Sergio, next time." She sat across from him, behind a desk piled with papers and envelopes and files. Apparently, she had a lot of work to do. Still, she was nice about the whole thing. "Next time, I can't cut you any slack. Don't miss school again, Sergio. I don't have to tell you. Showing up already puts you ahead of the rest." "Yes, ma'am," Sergio nodded. I won't. I will. I mean, I know." "Okay, then get to class. Oh, and Sergio," she stopped him just as he got to the door to her office. I hope whatever you had to do yesterday without your grandmother's permission was well worth it. I hope it wasn't any kind of trouble. If you are in any kind of trouble, you know you can come and talk to me. Top of page 133, he says, I know that, Sergio said. It wasn't trouble, and it had been worth it, spending the day with Gideon. Sergio thought about yesterday all the way down the hall. He was even wearing one of the new t-shirts Gideon had bought for him. Gideon had said it was payment for saving that guy's life, and it was the least he could do. And then he offered to take Sergio to lunch. They had sat across from each other in a booth at the diner. Sergio's grandmother hadn't been happy about the call from Gideon's cell phone. She wasn't happy Sergio missed school. But whatever Gideon told her must have meant something. When Sergio got on the line, she was calmer. She said she wasn't going to cover for him at school, but she wouldn't punish him either. And he just had to be back home by dinner. Top of page 134. I didn't do anything, Sergio said. And I doubt that guy would have died anyway. He probably had a hemorrhage, a bleed in his brain you couldn't see, Gideon said. He might have died. You wouldn't believe some of the things I've seen. Last year, we pulled a young girl from a car after an accident up on the West Side Highway. She had lost control and hit a pole, and then a wall. Barely any damage to the car or to her. She hit her head in just the wrong way, I guess. She looked like she was sleeping. But she wasn't. She wasn't. Gideon shook his head from side to side slowly, as if he were feeling it all over again. Sergio had ordered a chocolate milkshake, Gideon vanilla, and they had just talked. Who gets the chocolate? I'm guessing your son, the waitress said. She stood at the booth holding up 2 large canisters, both dripping with condensation from the cold ice cream inside. Gideon looked at Sergio. He's not my dad, Sergio said, but yeah, the chocolate is mine. Well, you two look alike. She set the shakes down. They did in a way. Maybe in that way, white people think black people all look similar. But then again, they both poured their shakes into their respective glasses and then lifted the metal canisters to their mouths, drinking from the leftovers first. And then again, there was a kind of facial likeness between them, a shade of skin color. Sergio found himself looking at Gideon, watching him, listening. When he looked down at his own hand, he saw his fist clenched like it always was, and he let it unfurl. Okay, so we're at the top, page 135. We're going to pause here for just a moment. So Sergio makes a comment that all white people think black people look similar. That's a stereotype. That's not entirely true. However, Sergio is trying to minimize the impact of this waitress's statement. Because remember, Sergio, part of his identity is that he was abandoned by his dad. He doesn't have a dad. And part of him at this point, he's in 8th grade. He's starting to develop a mindset that he doesn't need a dad, right? So the idea that somebody thought Gideon was his dad, it kind of makes him angry at first, right? We see that clenched fist. But then this is so important. At the end of this paragraph, it says, when he looked down at his own hand, he saw his fist clenched, like balled up tight, like it always was. And he let it go. He let it unfurl. So Sergio has been living this angry life because of Paul. But Gideon shows him that positive reinforcement, that positive older male attention that a dad would typically give. And it's working. It's making Sergio see the world a little differently. It's making Sergio a little more positive. It's making him feel important and relevant and useful. He's starting to value himself because Gideon values him, even though Paul doesn't. So this is very powerful. This little gesture of him letting his fist open up and relax shows us that Sergio really is accepting Gideon on an emotional level that we really wouldn't have expected so quickly. Okay, so we're in the middle of 135. Gideon wanted to know about the math award. He seemed interested and impressed. You could do anything, Gideon told him, anything you want with your life. Well, maybe I want to be a fireman. Sergio bit into his burger. Fireman, huh? You could do that, Gideon said. I'd be proud to work next to you one day. Or a doctor. Gideon nodded, like he didn't think that was strange at all. So here's Gideon just believing in him. And that makes such a difference to Sergio. So let's add that to our character chart, please. For Sergio, he wants to be a fireman or a doctor. And please add that Gideon believes in him and makes him feel confident and relaxed. Confident is CONFIDENT. Confident and relaxed, which is something Paul has never been able to do for him. Okay? We're still on the bottom of page 135. We've got that little page break showing us that we are back in time on the morning of September 11th. Now sitting in class, Sergio looked up at the clock over the door, at the white face, at the black minute hand, which moved unbelievably slowly, until another 60 seconds had gone by. It clicked into its place, locked, and the first school bell rang out. 6 hours more, and he'd be free again for the day. Top of page 136. It was 8:44 exactly, and Sergio knew where he would be going right after school. He could look out the window and see Lower Manhattan, the financial district, where he knew Gideon's station house was. Gideon had told him to come by any time to the firehouse. If they weren't on call, all the guys would be there. Sergio could even hang out. Gideon would introduce him around, show him the station. If it's okay with your grandma, Gideon said. I've always wanted a little brother. Oh, and hey, if it's okay with you too. Sergio was already dreaming about it. He barely listened as his teacher droned on about something. For the first time in a long time, he felt a kind of eagerness for the day ahead. Now, this is kind of interesting, right? Because right here, we see that Sergio is starting to feel enthusiastic about something, right? And this is the guy who in the past told us he only liked math because numbers make sense, people don't. Relationships don't make sense to him. And here he is building this bond with Gideon, and Gideon's already treating him like a little brother. This is the first time in a long time Sergio has felt excited about something. So let's add that to his chart, that he feels excited about visiting the firehouse and Gideon after school. Here's the problem. It's September 11th. The firehouse is in Lower Manhattan. Now, the location of Sergio's school, if we want to try to fact check the author, is based on the location of Stuyvesant High School. And we will read an article written by the students of Stuyvesant High School about what they witnessed and what they experienced on September 11th. And I want us to be able to compare it to what Sergio goes through. So we're not going to see everything that happens right now, but in our next section with Sergio, you'll actually see the event. So this is kind of interesting because the tone of this shifts, meaning the word choice and the way the author is presenting it changes. We are inside these characters' heads mostly for this book, but these last two paragraphs are very factual, and they include information that Sergio would never know just as a student in school on the day of September 11th. So we're going to read through and see what information we can get. 120 seconds clicked by. Flight 11, a commercial airliner carrying 81 passengers and 11 crew members, which had been hijacked shortly after taking off from Boston's Logan International Airport, flew directly into the North Tower of the World Trade Center and exploded. Someone standing at the window started rambling about a dark mushroom of smoke rising from across the river, and the bell, without any awareness of what was going on, rang for first period. So this sets us up with the information we need to know. The first attack has just occurred. It's 8:44 in the morning, okay? Now, that being said, the students who are witnessing this don't understand what's going on because realistically, no one understood what was going on at this point. okay? So we're going to shift gears over on page 137, and we're going to Columbus, Ohio. Now, mind you, it is 8:54 in the morning, so that plane has already hit. But they're in Ohio, and the news is definitely covering this. The local news stations in New York, who usually cover things like weather and traffic, have actual video footage of that tower being struck by Flight 11. So that has been picked up nationally already, but these people are all in school. So they're not watching the news at this point, okay? So let's see what's going on in Nahid's world. Flight 77, with 58 passengers and 6 crew members on board, on its way to Los Angeles International Airport, deviated from its course, means it left its course, turning south directly over Ohio, where 35,000 feet below, Nahid was sitting in language arts class, listening to Virginia Whitworth give her book report on The Outsiders. So we start with that factual information that there's no way Nahid could possibly know. And for Nahid, it's a normal day, right? She's in English class. Somebody's giving a book report. They're giving a book report on a book that you're actually going to read later this year. So this is an illusion, and that's ALLUSION. What that means is the author is bringing in something from real life to make the fictional story feel more real. So what was Nahid doing in English class? She was listening to a book report of a very specific book that actually does exist and was published in 1967. Oh, I read that book, Nahid whispered to no one in particular. I loved it. But then Nahid hardly heard the rest of Virginia's report. She was working out in her mind what she was going to say to Eliza and how she was going to make things better. Instinctually, she reached up to pull down her headband and adjust her veil. It was her thinking cap. We're at the top of page 138. Nahid knew she'd never get everyone to stop teasing Eliza, but she herself could be nicer. She could be a friend to her, and maybe that would help. It was the right thing to do, and the truth was nobody was going to stop being Nahid's friend just because she was Eliza's friend. She hoped. The bell rang as Virginia was finishing, but the teacher made everyone wait until she had given the homework for tomorrow, which meant they all had 25 seconds less time to get to their next class. Today was Tuesday, and it was a B week, which meant a double period of science, which meant Nahid could start implementing her making amends plan right away. Eliza would be in the class. Today, Nahid had taken her science book with her so she could be on time. So just like we have A day, B day, C day, D day, these kids have different weeks that dictate how their schedule is going to work, right? So in a way, Nahid's kind of excited because this gives her the opportunity to spend a good amount of time with Eliza and try to make things better in their relationship, because Nahid's starting to realize even if she is Eliza's friend, her real friends aren't going to judge her based on that. But when she got there, nothing looked right. A bunch of kids were bouncing around. Some were standing at the back of the room, but no one was sitting down. It was like the lunchroom on a Friday afternoon before school vacation when the cafeteria monitors weren't paying attention. In the far corner, the television was on, and Mrs. Salinger was staring at it with her back to the classroom. Sure, sometimes they watch videos in science, but today they were supposed to continue working on their theories and experiments. We're at the top of page 139. And since when did Mrs. Salinger let things get out of control? She didn't even turn around to yell at the boys who were playing with the Bunsen burners. Bunsen burners are the little tools that make fire inside of a science lab. Very dangerous. Eliza was standing at their desk, facing the wrong way, toward the back of the room, not moving. Nahid had never seen her so still and so quiet. A few more kids went to stand next to Mrs. Salinger and stare at the TV. But Mrs. Salinger didn't seem to notice anything but the screen. This wasn't like her at all. It looked as if the television was turned to a news channel. The CNN Live logo was stamped across the bottom, but that was all Nahid could see. She always hated the news. Why was everyone watching it? And why were they being so quiet about it? But now was as good a time as any to talk to Eliza with all this freedom, with nobody paying attention. "Hey, Eliza, can I talk to you a minute?" Nahid started. "She might not get another chance." "Something terrible has happened," Eliza said. She looked upset, but then again, Eliza got frantic if her pencils weren't lined up. "I know," Nahid said, "and about that, I am so sorry. So why don't I make it up to you and you sit with us at lunch today?" Top of page 140. Eliza took her eyes away from the television. "Really?" Her face brightened. Nahid nodded. "Hey, that was easy. And it actually felt good. Really," she said. "Okay, that's enough. Everyone back to their seats," Mrs. Salinger suddenly yelled out. Nahid looked around the room. Mrs. Salinger had turned off the television, but the kids who had been watching didn't move. Something was wrong. Maybe that's what Eliza had meant when she said something terrible had happened. She had been watching the news. Now Nahid felt silly. But when she turned to ask Eliza what happened, Mrs. Salinger preempted her. "No more talking," she ordered. "Take out your work. This has nothing to do with us." "What didn't?" Mrs. Salinger repeated it, as if trying to convince herself. "This has nothing to do with us." So that sounds like a pretty cold statement coming from a school teacher in the middle of a horrific attack. But remember, Mrs. Salinger doesn't understand what's going on. Whatever's happening in New York City, at first they thought it was an accident. They thought that plane had accidentally hit the Twin Towers. So there's no real awareness except that this tragic thing had happened and that it killed a lot of people. As the information became more readily available that day and people knew and understood that we were actually under attack, that became very unifying in a sad and strange way. A lot of people pulled together from all over the country. So I can speak from my personal experience. I had friends contacting me from Chicago and California and Texas and Florida who were just checking in to make sure my family was okay, because nobody really could understand the scope of how big the attacks were. And they didn't know how badly the area had been impacted, right? And I'm sure some of you have relatives that don't necessarily live in New York, so they assume that Rockland County is like, a 5-minute walk into New York City. They may not understand the geography kind of protects us. So for Mrs. Salinger, she's trying to regain some control of her class, and she's acknowledging there's a tragedy, but she's trying to create that distance. And Nahid is definitely smart enough to pick up on the fact that Mrs. Salinger is almost trying to convince herself that this is an isolated event, doesn't have anything to do with us, right? Of course, the teacher was wrong. Now, with that being said, let's open up Nahid's section of the character chart. I would like for you to add that she has apologized to Eliza, and Eliza accepted the apology. We also see the school kind of finding out about September 11th in New York City. So you can mention she goes to science class and the teacher is watching the news, as are some of the students. For Nahid's school, that's probably how the information got leaked, was students watching news and then sharing it. In our building, no one was permitted to show students the news. So people found out in different ways. Of course, we will talk more about this as we continue reading about the events of September 11th. And I strongly encourage you to remember back to your Unsung Heroes assignment to compare what's being given to us as a fictional story with the actual facts and reality that we've learned about so far. We're going to stop here for today. If you have any questions, please email me at lmartin@sufferancentral.org.